Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood, and shortly Julie Tenner will be joining me for part 2 of our podcast, Recession Proofing Your Family Financially and Emotionally with Coco, the astro-economist. Now, Jules and I just absolutely loved this conversation. We took this so many places, and it really is a conversation for our times. So Coco D is an astro-economist, women's wealth advocate, and founder of the Daughter Economy. As an intuitive wealth creator, Coco lovingly leads you to returning wealth to your legacy line. We hope you love this episode.
What do you feel is incredibly important for women to know about when it comes to their money and their financial future? And part B, because I love a part A, part B question. Part B to that is it different for mothers?
It's funny, right? Because I'm only a mother for 12 months and I look back on being a maiden and I'm like, if you had asked me that when I was a maiden, I'd be like, no, it's not different. What are you talking about? But I feel like it's very similar. So sorry, part A again?
Part A, what's important for women to know for building and envisioning their financial future?
Yes. So I want women to know that firstly, you're worthy of whatever it is that you want. And no matter what anyone else says, whether it's the Gucci that you love or the spa, a spa once a week or whatever it is for you, you're not high maintenance. That's just something that you love. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Even if you can't afford it right now, even if it feels like you're just dreaming, you can have those things. Secondly, out earning your husband, your partner is not a bad thing. It's okay. And you as the woman will have to inevitably usher in a new version of your partner because there's a change for them too that occurs where they're the provider and all of a sudden they're like, well, what does this mean for my identity? If you now out earn me, I've had to go through that with my partner. So I think, going through that and then understand your numbers. If you're someone who is scared of looking at your numbers or you're scared of big numbers, start to play with big numbers, start to carry around $500 in $100 notes or whatever your denomination is in whatever country you're in, and start to really stretch yourself and feel into the uncomfortable corners of money that feel really yucky for you. Because unless you're willing to go there, making $500 an hour, making $500 a day or whatever it is for you, it's going to be hard if you can't even fathom that, and you might, for those who follow me on Insta, I post quite regularly about my daughter. I'm always giving her money because I want her to feel that money is it's just like a bottle of water. It's just like anything. I want her to not have any attachment to the money. Obviously, having good money management skills is important, which I will teach her. But also not having that emotion of, oh my God, it's $100. I better not, whatever that feeling might be.
Man, I love that. Like, can we just spend a hot minute just on that point?
Well, and that's why we've created the daughter economy, purely for that. And I feel like that's a whole other conversation. But for me, I'm very passionate about financial literacy for young girls and for teenagers and for young women, because the amount of financial abuse, and that was going to come into my next point about for your part A, is around financial abuse with women. And there are so many women of all ages that experience financial abuse. It does happen with men as well. It's not just exclusive to women, but majority are women. And I feel that when women allow themselves to learn more about money and to be around other women who love money and are open about speaking about money, it gives them that, it opens up their mind to what is possible. And part B, sorry, I've just gone on a rant.
Part B, are these points different for mothers, or would you add points in, or would it alter the questions? Just, is it the same?
I feel like it's the same because we're women, but I feel that as mothers, we carry more. So we carry more shame, we carry more because we're trying to keep everyone happy. And so I feel that for mothers who haven't in their maiden had the chance to go through that, it can be, I'm not saying it is, I don't want anyone to use that as an excuse, but it could be harder because you're already finding less time for yourself. How do you then find time for yourself to really hone in on the things that's holding you back? But I just want to say, you know, like, you don't need an hour a day, like 5 minutes every day to just be with yourself, even when you're on the loo. Like, grab your wallet and stare at your wallet with your $500 notes and be like, fuck yeah, I got $500 in my wallet. I don't know. Like, that's all you need, you know? Like,
it's so good. I just want to revisit back to your daughter conversation because it just like lit me up, and to some extent would be counterculture to some of the women who are in here. So I just want to like tease that out a little bit. The point from which I'm saying that from is that a large proportion of the women who we find in the conscious parenting, natural living, sustainability-based community are also choosing, I don't know what the word is, more frugal ways of living, more sustainable ways of living, and more less is more. No, you like, I don't, how do I say what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know what
almost like you're talking about, like, resources are finite. We need to tread lightly. We don't want to consume too much. Like, we don't want to take up too much. You know, there's almost an inference of not taking up too much space.
Well, yeah, and
of that.
I don't want my kids to have everything, and why should you have money? And you know, you don't get to just be ungrateful for things, you know, which is very counter to, yeah, money's cool. Like, it's so flowy and you have money.
You know, we don't attach like meaning to it. It's a thing that's comfortable to move in and out of our lives.
I mean, Bridget nailed it, right? It's this energy of, I used to be a hoarder of money. I used to hold my money so tightly because I was so scared that if I spent that dollar, because of having so many mortgages to pay for, and if I had that Freddo frog, so then I kind of took that in to everything that I did. And now I'm still a very good manager of my money, but I know that when I let it go, so to speak, or when I have that thing, as long as I'm making the decision from my intuition and something that's going to serve me to feel good rather than doing it from an ego perspective or to keep up with whoever I'm trying to impress, then there is so much that's going to come back to me. And I've noticed that the more I feel good, the more money I'm making. And so, for example, this villa that we are in, some would say is expensive, but one of our goals with Angel and I was to feel good. We want to feel good because we know when we feel good, we make more money.
Yeah.
And so in the past, I would have been like, there is no way I'm spending that money. Like, there is no way.
You would have done it purely on numbers and strategy and, like, you know, all of that, like, stuff.
Spot on.
Right?
Yes. I'd have been like, what's the return? How, like, where else could I invest that money that's going to get me a better return? Like, this is a waste. How silly of me. I could live in a 1-bedroom with my partner and my baby. Like, we don't need all of this. This is ridiculous. Whereas literally we walk in here and we're like, oh, we just like, I feel everything is so light.
I
And
watched your house tour and I was like, imagine the content creation opportunities there, right? Which is totally also what's going to make you the money, right?
exactly. So, and don't get me wrong, I get it. This is new for me. This is like 12, like literally as old as my daughter, because when I birthed her, I got an Airbnb on the Gold Coast for 3 months, and at the height of COVID, it was so expensive, and I was like, I can't spend it, because we live in Central Queensland as well as Brisbane, and I didn't want to have. I had a home birth, and I couldn't birth in Moranbah, so I was like, okay, well, I'll birth on the Gold Coast. Took me ages to find a unit, and I spent, I think it was like 15 grand on a unit for 3 months, and I was like, that is so much money
for you to have the birth of your dreams.
For me to have the birth of my dreams. And that was when it started.
Like speaking our language here.
Yeah. So that was like a big stretch for me. And my partner was
Hang on a minute. How did you build the self-worth to do that? Because let's face it, home birth in Australia is roughly around $5,000?
Oh, more than that.
It cost
what is
me
it now?
It cost me $6,000 for the midwife, and then it cost me like a bit more for everything else. So plus then the 15 grand that I spent on.
Okay, but let's just say a home birth is $8,000, and most partners and women balk at the idea of spending $5,000 to $8,000 on creating a birth experience for themselves. And here you are saying you spent 20 to 25.
Yeah.
So how did you build the how did you build the self-worth to do that?
You're so funny. I'm always going to think of you now when someone says "Pade puppy."
This is amusing, actually. I haven't seen it.
I do. I remember it. Okay, so part A, how did you build the self-worth to choose that and you in that? And part B of that is, did you perceive that 20 to 25 grand to be an investment that would pay you back in some way?
Okay, so very good questions. I don't know if I'm going to answer them in order, but I'm just going to answer them. Firstly, I remember vividly looking at the price and feeling sick. This is 12 months ago, guys. I felt sick. I was like, why the fuck am I even going to do this? Like, but I didn't want to go to hospital. And I literally, like, I share a home in Brisbane with my parents. And I'm like, I'm not going to put my dad through that. Like, that's still not, and I didn't want to birth in that house, and I couldn't do it in Central Queensland. So I was like, I have to find somewhere. And yeah, I looked and looked for months, like overthinking it. And I don't even remember why I made the decision, but I was like, I was so sick of looking. I'm like, just fucking choose a place. Like, just choose a place. Fuck the money. You've got it in your bed. And then my partner was like, we've got the money. Like, just do it. He's like, it'll be like a holiday. Like, it's all good. So anyway, I booked it. And the minute I went in there, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I never thought about the money ever again.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
I thought like it was like it was like going to therapy for me.
Like you had to grow, that part of you had to grow through that experience, like that part of you that was so clutching on to everything because of the losses. Had to go through the experience.
And then the feeling of like, I had a birth that lasted 35 hours, like, but I was so comfortable, like everything was, it was crazy, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Now I look back and I don't even think about the money that I spent. Like, I've never even thought about it. But tell you what, for 4 months, I was like, I can't let this go on. Yeah.
So did you essentially create the birth experience that you were after?
I would say 90%.
Yeah. Well, I would say yes. That
Yeah.
I think that's how it rolls.
Yeah.
So do you perceive that the investment that you made in that, like you have with this house, right? You're like, oh, it's hard to feel like I can up level to that. And then I make the decision and I'm like, of course, this is where I was always supposed to be.
Yeah.
And now I am just look at all the content and the ideas that are flowing, blah, blah, blah. Was it the same with your birth, that it was hard to do the decision, yet once it was done, you were like, and did that experience that you set yourself up for, because had you chosen a hospital or a different environment, I would argue you would be a different person with different beliefs and different experiences and different traumas, which also influences your future life and ability to make money.
100%. I always say, you know, the decisions that you made 2 or 3 years ago, you're living out right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm like, do you see that do you perceive that were you even aware, or have you thought about it afterwards, that as you're making these decisions to spend, you know, $25,000 on a home birth to create an experience for yourself that was as whole as you could make it, that paid you back in life and all of
totally.
the things.
And I feel that everything that I've ever invested has, even my losses, even the losses, every loss that I've had has given me more than I would. You know, it's funny. I was talking about this recently with a friend, and I'm like looking at the crossroads. I'm like, if I hadn't had that loss, where would I be today? If I hadn't had that, where would I be today? I'm like, well, I would still be cocky. I wouldn't have learned those lessons. Like every bit of money that I've lost or that I've invested, to me, it's all an investment. I don't see it as a loss. I talk about it as a loss because that's how society sees it. But it's actually one of the best investments that I've made, has gotten me to here. And
isn't that so great?
Yeah.
Well, Bridges is like what you talk about all the time, that there's no loss without gain and there's no gain without loss.
And that's what I hear Coco sharing, was that she's moved through those experiences or process them in such a way that she can see the inherent wholeness in each of them, right? Like that you've seen the blessings in the crisis.
I think the biggest thing for me too, having lost all that money before, I've now realized that the worst thing that can happen to me, the worst thing, is that I'm literally homeless and I have to knock on someone's door and say, hey, can I use your bathroom? Can I have a blanket for the night? And I'm like, I have so many people who love me that I know that I won't even be homeless. So if I can get over my ego, and if I lost it all again today, there are so many people who will take me in. I have so many skills that I could exchange for a roof over my head and some bread for me and my daughter and my partner. Like literally, I'm not scared anymore. We are so scared of losing money. We are so scared of losing everything that we've created that it cripples us. And this is what's happening right now with inflation. Everything is just so crippling that we're contracting so much within ourselves, because we're like, oh my God, if you know, whatever it is, if we can't pay the mortgage, then we're going to lose this house. I was recently speaking to a lady who was like, I'm not getting rid of my house. And I'm like, okay, so why not? Because I love my house. I'm like, but you are in dire straits. Like if you sold your house and, you know, you had a bit of money from that, yep, you might have to rent. But I'm like, who cares? Oh yeah, but I'm not going to find a rental. I'm like, well, you might not, or you might. Or you might have to share a room for 6 months, but then you won't have the stress. So you'll probably have a better life than in your big empty home where you fucking hate your life anyway. So like, we're so scared of like the house and the this, and then the shame of, like you said, Bridget, like, then I'm going to have to tell everyone, well, why did you sell your house? Yeah. You know what? I will not go into business now with anyone who hasn't lost money. And when I say money, like, I don't want you to, if you've lost 10 grand, I don't care. If you've lost 6 figures, then I will entertain going into business with you, because I will not be part of someone else's first
rodeo.
Yeah. I've been there.
Because you see that as such an important initiation for you to get for your own emotional bandwidth.
It's emotional. Yeah. People like it's like we just can't handle it so much that we lose ourselves in it. And it's like this tornado of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's emotions you can't regulate, like unregulated emotions that are just so far-fetched beyond our widest fears that aren't even half, like 3/4 of them won't even be reality. We just go onto this, like, we have the best imagination, us humans, of all the things that could happen but never happen. And like, I've been through that. I've done it twice. I'm not going on, like, I'm not doing that anymore. So if you can let go of the, like, for me now, when I invest my money, whatever, like I've invested in a childcare, I've already spent 200 grand. It might not get approved. It might not get built, whatever. I don't care. Like, it's like, I'm so unattached to anything that's going to happen in my life now. You know, Bali was 2 years in the making. I'm like, oh, I've spent whatever it was on the visa. Oh, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Mm.
And
you had to get to a level of resilience to be able to have that capacity, which was
correct, because
the challenge.
Correct. And because I knew that, like, well, nothing bad actually happened. Like, I was still able to feed myself. I was still going to sleep every night. Like, I survived. And like, I'm not I wasn't through war. I had war within myself, but I lived in a safe country. I still had running water. Like, the things that we fear the most never eventuate. And it's really just our emotions. And that's why coming back to the title of the podcast is so critical, to manage your emotions, because the things that we fear the most typically never happen. And it's our shame and our guilt and our ego that rule all of this. And that's the only reason why we feel the way we feel.
Just a brief pause in this podcast to let you know the goings on in our world. So if you are seeking to be loved better, become a better lover by joining Julie's Queen School and Honey Club, which is a beautiful integration of both of these powerful transformative courses as part of a 12-month container. And if you would like to deepen your mothering support, then grab the free guide from my website, which is 12 Secrets of Nourished Mothering, which you can find out at bridgetwood.life. And of course, connect with Julie at julietenner.love.
Can I ask a question you said earlier, or Bridgie alluded to, which is, how do you distinguish the difference between what is intuition and what is emotion? How do you distinguish that difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do I distinguish? I mean, after years of practice, for me, it's very much, I used to be the type of person that claimed to be the most proactive person on earth. But what I realized is that I wasn't proactive. I was just so scared of what would happen that I would just make decisions so quickly. That way I wouldn't have to like think about the alternative. Whereas now I take a lot longer to make decisions, which is not that long really, but compared to my old self. And so that time gives me the ability to really assess. And I just ask myself some key questions like, are these feelings really real? Like, you know, is this what you really want, or is it just your ego? You know, I look at both sides of everything that that I'm assessing. So let's say, I don't know, what's an example? I can't think of an example. I'm sorry.
Let's just take moving to Bali. Like, how did you know that wasn't emotionally get me the fuck out of here versus intuition, I really need to be there?
Well, firstly, time. We didn't have, it took us 2 years. So we really had a lot of time to think of it over. But definitely I was sick of Australia for a long time. So I feel like my initial decision to move to Bali was very emotional. And then as time went on, I realized, that there's things here that, my daughter can't have a bath. Well, I won't she can. I just won't let her have a bath because she's going to drink the water. And I'm like, no, I don't really want you to do that. So I really thought about all of the reasons, all the good, like the downsides and the positives of moving to Bali. And as long as I was really grounded in that, I grew up in Tahiti. So, I wanted her to have the island lifestyle as a child. And I wanted to have a bit of an adventure. So, yeah, it started out as an emotional decision, definitely. And then over time, I think, again, time served me. So, again, I could have gotten really angry about the fact that, well, we made this decision 2 years ago and we never got to move there and this is bullshit. But, in that time, I started my project on the childcare. I started another business, and I would have never had that had I come to Bali. So now I don't think I'm answering the question right, because I never really thought about it, but I just trust so much that everything that happens to me happens for me now. It's just, it's like I have these emotional tanties for like 10 minutes and then I get over it.
Yeah.
So what I hear is that you have built a high level of skills or a lot of tools in the tool belts for being able to regulate yourself from a place of even good feeling high dysregulation into something that what you're calling grounded. We could also insert the term regulated 4. So a state of dysregulation and elation into a state of regulation and groundedness.
Yes.
So I hear that you have a big skill set that you have built over many years.
Yes.
To be able to do that in what you now say you can do in 10 minutes.
Yes.
So I also see that would be something that people, if you struggle, if you can easily fly off the handle into huge highs or huge lows or huge overwhelm, that would be somewhere people would need to start.
Yeah,
right? Is
definitely.
developing the skill set to come back to center. Then I hear you say, and I've learned to slow down. And I love that. I was like, yeah, homie, me too. Because I often think that's a trauma response. The faster we go, the less we feel.
You're spot on.
Yeah. So also my life lesson has been to just like pull on those reins of what feels like a fucking freight train in my body and mind. I have to learn how to pull the reins more than trust the rush of the ride, because I want to be a Japanese bullet train.
Because the rush can also be addictive, right? If you've developed the neurochemistry that says this feels like I'm doing something and doing something's good, that's a practice, to pull that back.
So I hear that you've done the same thing and you've recognized, oh, this isn't all good. What actually is better for me is to learn how to slow this down and check in with my body. This is what I hear. Is this, I just want to check in with you. That
yeah, it is definitely what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're slowing yourself down consciously. And I would say in that, are you regulating your FOMO? Because often what happens is when you can feel there's part of you that can see that train's disappearing away from you. And you're like, I just want to get back on it.
I feel that my FOMO train is like pretty much non-existent anymore.
See, interesting. So tell me about this skill set then, because this is an additional one.
I feel that everyone goes through everything that we all go through at different times in their life and at different intensities. So mine was around money. Other people's might be relationship, whatever it might be. But I feel that we all have all sides. And so when I I don't really experience FOMO, but even when I was experiencing it, I'd just catch myself and I'd be like, yeah, but what else is happening really behind that?
I like it. Okay, so this is your skill set.
Yeah.
So this is where you're getting yourself to flip your mindset from I'm missing out into nothing's missing. What have you got right now?
Yeah, because and it's not to downplay what their success or what they've got in their life. It's just because I know that all sides are present. Like even though I was going through all my money stuff, at that very point, there was other cool things that were happening in my life. I just don't talk about them because I just talk about the loss because people can see and relate to that. And so now I always think to myself like, yeah, well, old mate, let's talk about success or money. They're doing so well. They're making all this money. I'm like, yeah, but what did they give up for that?
Yeah.
That we don't see. Or people, they're not overnight success. Like they've worked 20 years to get there. Just like me, one day I'm going to be an overnight success. And, I've been doing it since I was 18. So I'm just conscious of all of those things. And I also conscious that, and it's something that Bridget and I do quite regularly, but, we work on all sides and our values. And now that I really understand my values, when I see, like, if I ever feel FOMO, I'm like, but I don't even care about that.
Which is such a good point, isn't it? Right? Like, it's like everything has an opportunity cost. And when you're choosing that, like,
yeah,
it's the best way to level yourself, because as soon as you compare and you realize someone has a completely different value set to you, it's like, well, of course they've got amazing success there because they're putting all their energy there and they're investing their time there and their mastery there. Would I choose to do that? Like, honestly, self-check, intuition, all those things. No. Okay. FOMO gone. Right.
One of my best friends that I've known since I was like 14, she always says to me, Corinne, you have such an amazing life. Like, I love what you do, blah, blah. She's like, but you work too much. Like, and she's my only friend that I've had for like so long that doesn't judge me, doesn't have FOMO, doesn't like, and that's why we're still friends, even though we live very different lives, because she recognizes and she has like, she's so grateful to, like, we're just so grateful to have each other in our lives, where she recognizes, like, I love what you have, but fuck that, like, you work so hard, and you know, but for me, I don't work hard because I love what I do. But for her, I work so hard.
I love that
So
distinction.
It's really important to really see, you know, I've always wanted, like, I've got my car, it's 20 years old, because I can't bring myself to spending like, my favorite car is $150,000, and I'm like, I can't bring myself, I've got it, but I'm like, I can't bring myself to doing that. Then I see someone else having that car, and I'm like, oh, lucky them, like, oh, and then I'm like, it's probably on loan. Two, if I really wanted it, I probably would just get it. So it shows me that it's not a high value of mine.
Love it. I love it. Okay, so this is your skill set with FOMO, which is part of what you're doing here to balance, to go between emotion and intuition. And so when you're saying, I'm slowing myself down and then I'm doing all sides, have I done the positives and the negatives? And at the end of that list, I'm checking in and going, is this something I really want? And that I hear you say grounded. So I'm wondering if there's something there around, you're almost checking in with your body and going, am I looking for dysregulation or regulation at the end of that list? Would that be correct?
Yeah, like, I don't know if anyone talks about human design on this podcast. Have you guys?
No, but you go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm really one personality type, for lack of a better word, is human design, and I'm a generator, and a generator has very sacral energy. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's different for everybody. And so as a generator, having that sacral energy, for me, it like, I just have this feeling in my sacrum that's like, yeah, it's that groundedness. I can't really explain it, but for me, it just feels like I'm just super neutral, and it just feels light. But, you know, if you're someone that's like a projector, it will feel differently because they have different energy types. So if you are interested in human design, I'm not an expert, but I really recommend for you to look into it, because for me, human design changed my whole life. I felt like the person reading my chart knew me, and I'm like, how do you know me? Because I don't know you. This is really freaky. But it allowed me to be more of me, and understanding myself in that way gave me, that's another tool that I learned, gave me permission to be more of me. And that was, again, another tool that I used to really understand my intuition more. So for me, yeah, it's definitely in my body, it's in my sacrum, and I just know. It's just like this feeling, like, you know, for example, this podcast, I was like, yep, I'm just going to do it. Whereas if I didn't feel good in my body, I would have been like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm stressed, and you know, Ari's off sorts, and I don't know. It's just like this instantaneous yes or no in my body.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a beautiful nuance between intuition and emotion, with some really clear tools and steps, don't you think too, Bridget?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have another question? I just had one more. So do you?
No, you go with your question, then I'm going to ask a question.
I just wondered, what is a good manager of money? Who? I don't know if that's who. What is? Who? How?
Who is? What do you mean?
Well, I'm just like, what is a good manager of money? Like what
they do?
What do they do? Do you mean?
Yeah. So when you're like, I'm a good manager of my money, I'm like, what is that? How do I know what a good manager is and what a not good manager is of their money? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think someone who's good, a good manager of money. So, you know, I talk about wealth a lot, and to me, wealth is having. So, let me take it back a step. A lot of people have a lot of money, and some people make a lot of money, but they're not wealthy. And the reason for that is because they spend a lot of money. So, people who make a lot of money are not wealthy. People who are wealthy are people who make money. They don't have to make a lot of money. Like, you know, I was 18, and by the time I was 24, had 15 properties, and I only earned 20 grand a year. Now that's a conversation for another day. But so you can still be wealthy if you earn less than old mate down the road, but you manage your money very well. Now, when I say manage, I don't say be Mr. Scrooge. I just mean, like, do you understand where your money's allocated? Do you know, like, does money work for you? Do you understand how much is coming in and coming out? Like, if I asked you the question right now, how much are you worth? How much is liquid? How much is invested? What are your returns? Like, can you answer that? It's kind of like, how do you manage your business? Do you understand how to manage your business and your finances and your P&L? And could you tell me your P&L and your balance sheet off the cuff like that without having to be like, I'll come back to you in a week? To me, that's a good manager of money. Now, it's not like, everyone in the way that they do it is different. There are obviously principles that you should, inverted commas, follow. But again, like, I have done the whole gamut of things. And now, again, I'm very much led by my intuition, understanding your risk profile so that you understand exactly what type of investor you are. So you know that you're investing in things that are aligned to your values, but also in line with your risk profile. So for me, all of those things combined is a good manager of money. Understanding your cash flow, at the moment, I've got a lot of investments to do in my business. Do I have enough cash flow to feed all that through so that I have enough to fund that? And also, because one of my highest values is being an angel investor, then having spare money to continue to do that, and then money to live on as well. So do I have enough cash coming in so I can continue to feed that beast that I'm creating? And to me, that's wealth.
I love it. That's so clear and precise.
Yeah. On the topic of, I guess, leading more into where you take people to feel more supported with how they manage their money and how they manage themselves through this recession, where can people find out more from you, what you're doing? How can they get more of Coco?
So I'm mostly on Instagram. So it's I am Coco D. So COCODEE. I have a very interesting name, so I just broke it down to Coco D. And I speak a lot on Instagram about things like that. I give updates on the economy, and I just have fun with it. I try and break it down into a way that's really easily digested, because I know not everyone has money or wealth as a top value. So I try and really break it down. I do have a masterclass coming up next Tuesday, actually on the 26th of July, about recession proofing your life and your business. And yeah, I mean, I'm just constantly showing up, offering things. My biggest passion now that I have my businesses running for me is to give back and to be accessible for women specifically, because as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I didn't have that when I started. And I've spent so much money trying to find people that would just give it to me straight. Like, I'm kind of a straight shooter, if you haven't already noticed from this last hour. And I just wanted people to tell me the reality, rather than be like, oh, this is the 3 steps to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, like, what are you actually doing? Like, what does your life actually look like? What's your business? Like, nothing. Why is this so secretive? Why? Like, I hate how it's just, when I grew up, it's like, you don't talk about money. You don't ask how much people make. You don't do this. You don't do that. I'm like, well, why can someone make $100,000 and someone else make $100,000 a year and have completely different lives, and one person be utterly poor and one person be thriving? Why? Like, I want to see behind the scenes. I want to see what happens. And so I'm an open book. I'm willing to open up about whatever it is that people ask me, because I believe that one of the other reasons that I failed is because I'm constantly failing forward.
I love that.
So are we ready for our quick fire questions?
Oh, yes. I hope I'm ready.
Are you ready, Bridge?
Let's give it a go. Let's do it.
All right. Number 1 is, can you recall a time in your life where you experienced an immense challenge that you're willing to share, and you turned what we would perhaps term that wound into wisdom? So can you share briefly with us that experience, and more importantly, the wisdom that you mined out of it?
I mean, I feel like we covered it really throughout the whole podcast, but it's definitely been, for me, losing money and then which has allowed me to come back to me, and really breaking a lot of generational wounding from women in my life, in past generations, to really showing that, now I'm the main breadwinner, and also probably working less than most people would, in my family, would be like, what the hell is going on here? So really just rewriting that script. And it's a wound that's still there, and that I constantly work on. It doesn't go away. I still have that little voice, that little ego voice. It's like, oh, you're not good enough, today you didn't do any work and blah blah blah. But it's like, no, it's fine. Like it all, it always gets done, and it's just something that I have to constantly work on, and I love it. Like I love doing this kind of inner work. So
self-development junkies are our home here. Question number 2, do you remember it, Bridge?
If you could give somebody any book that was life-changing for you and that would change their lives, what book would that be?
This question always gets me, because I'm like, which version of Coraline is answering this? It's true. It's just like, I don't know, when I was 18, it was Think and Grow Rich. When I was, even like 3 years ago, I read a Donald Trump book. Yes, some people hate Donald Trump. Just bear with me. He's a businessman. I'm not talking about Donald Trump, the president. And that, like, I was like, whoa, like the nuggets in that book. I was like, whoa, this guy like just dropping the nuggets. I remember reading Louise Hay like decades ago. I remember like there's just so many books that have like been pivotal at that point in time that I always find this question really hard to answer, because I'm like, the person I am today.
Let me ask you this then. Which would be the book or the set of books that you would make sure were bound up, ready to be delivered to your child, should heaven forbid something happen to you and you're not able to hand it to them?
So The Gift of, I think I will stuff up these titles, but The Gift of Imperfection by Brené Brown, I think it was.
Yeah.
That really, like, as someone who was a perfectionist, that's really helped. Louise Hay, all her books. Wayne Dyer's was amazing. Napoleon Hill, absolutely incredible. Viktor Frankl, his book,
Man's Search for Meaning.
That's the one. I read that one probably once a year. It just really reminds me of, like, if he can do it, then my shit's nothing. Get over yourself, girl. Like, and I read that one once a year. And then Phil Anderson's The Cycle of Real Estate and Banking or something. I'll send it to you so you can add it to the show notes. That's one I read every year as well. So yeah, that'd probably be my collection.
That's great.
And if you could have a billboard anywhere in the world on a major superhighway that so many millions of people would see, what would it say?
You have time.
So good.
And it would be in Times Square.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, Coco, it has been such a just delight to have you on the podcast. We're so grateful.
Yeah,
thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Oh, thank you. We could clearly keep chatting, but we are going to wrap it up.
I know.
But we do just want you to share again. We will put all of your links in the show notes so that our listeners can go there. But please to share again, how do we connect with you and how do we get in on your masterclass?
Definitely. So I am Coco D on Instagram, and if you go in my bio there, the link is in there for the masterclass next Tuesday on the 26th of July. Some people have been having issues with the link, others not. But if you are, just DM me and I'll shoot through something for you. But I can't wait to meet your listeners as well.
Yeah, and if someone's listening to this after that masterclass has been and gone, will that still be able to be accessed on your website or something?
Yes, it will. And also I do a masterclass every month.
Great.
So I've got a whole host coming up until the end of the year on how to do your investment plan, how to, what is wealth and how do you start your wealth journey? How do you start buying property? How do you do property developments? All kinds of amazing things.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. We'll just do a quick wrap up. You can connect with us on nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Instagram and Facebook. And to connect with you, Bridge,
it's bridgetwood.life. And you, Jules?
Is julietenner.love.
Remember to nourish the woman. Oh, no, hang on. Did I just say
that's
wrong?
you. Yeah, go ahead, girl.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.